A long time ago, in a galaxy torn by conflict, from ancient Jedi wars to the final clash against the Sith Eternal, the galaxy has been shaped by epic confrontations. These weren't just battles of blasters and lightsabers. They were battles of ideology, sacrifice, and destiny. Whether on lush Naboo or the fiery plains of Mustafar, each skirmish carried consequences that echoed across generations. In this deep dive, we'll break down every major battle in the Star Wars timeline, exploring what caused them, how they unfolded, and the legacy they left behind. From the Battle of Naboo to Exegol, this is every battle in Star Wars explained. The Battle of Naboo wasn't just a fight. It was the beginning of a galactic unraveling. On the surface, it looked like a trade dispute. The Trade Federation blockaded the peaceful planet of Naboo under orders from a shadowy Sith Lord. But beneath that, this was Sidious's opening move, testing the Republic's weakness and laying the groundwork for war, manipulation, and eventual control. As the Senate stalled in endless debate, Queen Padme Amidala defied expectations. She returned home, forged an unlikely alliance with the native Gungans, and launched a bold, synchronized assault to take back her planet. The battle played out across three dramatic fronts. In orbit, young Anakin Skywalker, guided more by instinct than training, flew a Naboo starfighter straight into chaos, ultimately destroying the droid control ship. On the grassy plains, Gungan warriors stood bravely against a mechanical army, fighting not with superior weapons but with unity and belief in their home. Inside Theed Palace, Padme led hand-picked fighters in a daring infiltration, capturing the Viceroy and restoring sovereignty to her people. But the true storm was brewing deep inside the power generator core. There, Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi faced Darth Maul, a ferocious Sith with a double-bladed lightsaber and deadly precision. The duel was brutal and beautiful, ending in pain. Qui-Gon was struck down. Obi-Wan, in anguish, struck back and sliced Maul in two, though Maul's fate was far from sealed. The battle was won, but the war had just begun. Victory gave rise to Chancellor Palpatine. It introduced the galaxy to Anakin Skywalker, and it marked the return of the Sith after 1,000 years in the shadows. The Battle of Geonosis wasn't just the start of a war. It was the death of peace. Set on the dusty, red world of Geonosis, this was where diplomacy failed, alliances fractured, and the galaxy plunged headfirst into chaos. It began with a secret mission, Obi-Wan Kenobi, tracking a bounty hunter to Geonosis, only to uncover something far more sinister. A massive droid army being built in secret for the Separatists, under the guidance of Count Dooku, a former Jedi turned Sith apprentice. When Anakin and Padme came to rescue Obi-Wan, they too were captured, and the trio was sentenced to die in a gladiator-style arena. But just as all hope seemed lost, a dozen Jedi Masters arrived, lightsabers ignited, led by Mace Windu. The arena exploded into a full-scale Jedi battle, with hundreds of battle droids surrounding them. And then, the sky cracked open. Gunships descended, clone troopers stormed the sands, and for the first time, the Grand Army of the Republic entered the field. Jedi and clones fought side by side, sweeping through Geonosis in coordinated strikes. ATTEs rumbled over canyons. Gunships rained laser fire. The Jedi cut down droids, but not without loss. In the chaos, Jango Fett, the template for the clone army, was slain by Mace Windu, and Dooku, the orchestrator, escaped, after defeating both Obi-Wan and Anakin in combat. Only the arrival of Yoda prevented their deaths, but even the Grand Master couldn't stop Dooku's flight. The dust settled, but not the tension. The clone army had arrived, approved by emergency powers given to Chancellor Palpatine, and with that, the Clone Wars began. This battle ended one era and lit the match for a galactic inferno that would burn for years. The Battle of Christophus wasn't famous for its scale. It was remembered for its turning point. Set on a crystal-covered world shimmering and sharp, Christophus was where the Jedi first faced the brutal reality of prolonged war, and where a new generation stepped into the light. Republic forces, led by Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, were deployed to push back the Separatist occupation. The battle turned into a grueling standoff. Clone troopers fought street by street, ambushed by droids in narrow corridors, their supply lines cut and morale low. The turning point came with the arrival of a mysterious shuttle, carrying someone unexpected, a young Padawan named Ahsoka Tano, sent by Master Yoda to be Anakin's new apprentice. Anakin, of course, wasn't thrilled, but Ahsoka, quick-witted and bold, wasted no time proving herself. Together, the two launched a risky counterattack to destroy a Separatist shield generator, allowing Republic forces to retake ground. It wasn't easy. The droids were commanded by the ruthless General Worm Loathsome, and numbers weren't in the Republic's favor. But the Jedi's bold tactics and Ahsoka's creative thinking shifted the tide. The clones pushed forward, the droids fell back, and Christophas was freed. At least for now. But this battle wasn't just about territory. It marked the start of Anakin and Ahsoka's bond, a powerful partnership that would define the Clone Wars and haunt the future. As the dust settled on Christophas, a new chapter in the Jedi Order had begun, one shaped by war, mentorship, and destiny. The Battle of Coruscant wasn't fought in the Outer Rim. It was fought at the very heart of the galaxy. This wasn't just war. It was a message. Nowhere is safe. As the Clone Wars reached their breaking point, the Separatists launched a bold, unexpected strike. Right above Coruscant, the Republic capital. Led by General Grievous, the droid armada descended from hyperspace and began bombarding the city world. Chaos erupted in the skies. But this battle had another purpose: kidnapping Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. With Coruscant under siege, the Jedi launched a desperate rescue mission. High above the city, among the burning wreckage and colossal cruisers, Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi flew directly into the storm. Dodging turbo lasers and vulture droids, they infiltrated the flagship of General Grievous, where Palpatine was held. Inside, they confronted a nightmare, Count Dooku once again, waiting with lightsaber in hand. The duel was fierce and focused. Obi-Wan was knocked out early, leaving Anakin to face Dooku alone. But this time, the young Jedi's fury overwhelmed the Sith Lord. In a chilling moment of silence, Anakin decapitated Dooku at Palpatine's urging. A Sith Lord was gone, but another was rising. The battle raged on. The ship was torn apart mid-escape. Grievous fled, and Anakin, with Obi-Wan and Palpatine in tow, crash-landed the ruined flagship back onto Coruscant's surface, barely surviving. The Republic declared victory, but this was no triumph. Behind the cheers, the real enemy, Darth Sidious, stood victorious in secret. Dooku's death removed a rival. Anakin moved closer to darkness. And the war entered its endgame. The Battle of Coruscant wasn't just another chapter in the Clone Wars. It was the beginning of the end. The Battle of Mustafar wasn't a clash between armies. It was a duel between brothers, a fight for the soul of the galaxy. After years of war, betrayal, and manipulation, Anakin Skywalker, the Republic's greatest hero, had fallen. Seduced by Darth Sidious and the promise of power, he became Darth Vader, slaughtering Jedi younglings and leading the assault on the Jedi Temple. But it was on the lava-soaked world of Mustafar that Anakin's transformation would be complete. Sent by Sidious to wipe out the Separatist leaders, Vader executed them without mercy. With the Clone Wars officially ended, he waited for his new empire to rise. But instead, his past came to confront him. Padme Amidala arrived, desperate to bring him back from the brink. But Anakin was gone, twisted by fear, rage, and delusion.
I've been Godman Kenobi. Step 2.
And when Obi-Wan Kenobi stepped from Padme's ship, everything shattered. What followed was one of the most intense and emotional duels in Star Wars history. Lightsabers clashed across narrow walkways, control rooms, and the riverbanks of molten fire. Anakin and Obi-Wan were evenly matched. Both masters, both powerful, both heartbroken.
You were the chosen one! You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you.
Obi-Wan gained the high ground. Anakin, blinded by arrogance, leapt and fell. Literally and figuratively. His body was broken, his soul consumed, and as Sidious arrived to retrieve the remains of his new apprentice, what little light was left in Anakin Skywalker was buried beneath black armor and breathing machines. The Battle of Mustafar didn't save the galaxy. It marked the fall of the Jedi, the rise of the Sith, and the beginning of Darth Vader. Before there was hope, there was sacrifice. The Battle of Scarif was not a large-scale war. It wasn't led by Jedi or generals. It was fought by rebels with no guarantee of survival, only the belief that someone had to make the first move. As the Death Star neared completion, whispers of a superweapon began to spread, but no one believed it until a defecting Imperial pilot named Bodhi Rook carried a message from a scientist, Galen Erso, the Death Star's unwilling architect. He'd hidden a flaw in the station's core, but the flaw meant nothing if no one could find the plans. Enter Rogue One, a ragtag group of rebels led by Jyn Erso and Cassian Andor, infiltrated the top-secret Imperial data vault on the tropical world of Scarif. While the Rebel Alliance hesitated, unsure of committing to war, these few made the choice for them. On the beaches and in the skies, the rebellion's first true battle began. Rebel soldiers charged the shores under AT-ACT fire. X-Wings and U-Wings dropped from hyperspace, locked in a chaotic dogfight above the shield gate. The fighting was fierce, desperate, and doomed. One by one, Rogue One fell. Baze, Chirrut, Bodhi, K2SO, Cassian, and Jyn, each laying down their life so the plans could be transmitted. And just when it seemed hope had triumphed, darkness arrived. Darth Vader descended on the Rebel flagship like a nightmare, cutting down troopers in a narrow hallway, one breath at a time. But the plans made it out, barely, into the hands of a single starship, a ship carrying a princess, carrying hope. The Battle of Scarif didn't save the galaxy, it lit the spark that would. This was it. The moment the galaxy took a stand. One mood, one chance, one shot in a million. The Battle of Yavin was the first full-scale victory for the Rebel Alliance, and the first time the Death Star was truly tested. After stealing the station's plans during the Battle of Scarif, the Rebels discovered its hidden weakness: a thermal exhaust port leading directly to the main reactor. Tiny. Impossible. But not invincible. As the Death Star moved into position to obliterate the Rebel base on Yavin 4, the clock began to tick. The Rebel fleet was tiny, no capital ships, just X-Wings, Y-Wings, and courage. Pilots like Biggs, Wedge, and Red Leader flew into the trench. Most never came back. Darth Vader himself entered the battle, cutting down fighters with cold precision. One by one, the attack runs failed. Hope was fading. Then came Luke Skywalker. Guided by instinct and the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke shut off his targeting computer. He reached out with the Force and fired. 2 proton torpedoes. A direct hit. The Death Star exploded in a blinding wave of fire. Vader escaped, but the Empire had been dealt its first major wound. The galaxy cheered. The rebellion had proven it could win, and a farm boy from Tatooine had taken his first step toward destiny. But the war was far from over. The Emperor would not be so easily undone. The rebels thought they were safe. Hidden among the ice and shadows of a remote world, the base on Hoth was supposed to be secret, but the Empire was watching, and Darth Vader was hunting. After the destruction of the Death Star, the Rebel Alliance scattered across the galaxy. Their new command post on the frozen planet Hoth was as isolated as it was brutal. Blizzards howled, temperatures dropped dangerously low, but even the cold couldn't hide them forever. An Imperial probe droid found the base, and Vader wasted no time. As Star Destroyers emerged from hyperspace and deployed walkers onto the surface, the rebels prepared for evacuation, knowing full well they couldn't win. They just had to survive. The Empire launched a ground assault like nothing the rebels had seen before. Towering AT-ATs marched across the ice fields, unstoppable and relentless. Snowtroopers advanced with precision. The rebel front line cracked under the weight, but they didn't go down without a fight. Snowspeeders swooped low, using tow cables to trip the mighty walkers. General Riecken directed the retreat. Han and Leia fled under fire, and Luke Skywalker, barely recovered from a near-fatal Wampa encounter, held the front line before escaping in his X-Wing. The base was lost. The Empire claimed the battlefield, but the rebels lived to fight another day. It was a tactical defeat, but a moral victory. The Battle of Hoth reminded the galaxy the rebellion still had hope, and Darth Vader was getting closer to his son. This was the moment it all came down to. The fate of the rebellion, the fall of the Empire, and the redemption of a Skywalker. The Battle of Endor was more than a battle. It was a turning point in galactic history. After learning of a second Death Star under construction above the forest moon of Endor, the Rebel Alliance saw a chance to end the war once and for all. But it was a trap, carefully set by Emperor Palpatine, who was waiting for them. On the forest moon below, Han Solo, Leia Organa, and a strike team landed to disable the Death Star's shield generator. But their mission was quickly compromised, until help came from an unlikely source: the Ewoks. Small, primitive, and underestimated, these forest dwellers rallied to the rebels' cause, fighting with slings, traps, and bravery against elite Imperial forces. In orbit, a massive space battle erupted. Mon Calamari cruisers and X-Wings clashed with Star Destroyers and TIE fighters. Admiral Akbar led the fleet. Lando Calrissian piloted the Millennium Falcon into the heart of danger. But without the shield down, the Death Star remained invulnerable. Meanwhile, aboard the Death Star itself, the true confrontation unfolded. Luke Skywalker surrendered to Darth Vader, hoping to turn his father back to the light. But the Emperor had other plans, tempting Luke with hatred, pain, and fear. In a moment of rage, Luke struck, nearly killing Vader. But he stopped himself. He threw away his lightsaber. "I am a Jedi, like my father before me," and that changed everything. When Palpatine unleashed his fury, it was Anakin Skywalker, buried beneath Vader's mask, who made the choice. He turned on his master. He saved his son, and he paid the price. With the shield destroyed, Lando and Wedge Antilles flew deep into the Death Star's core and fired the final shot. The station exploded. The Emperor was gone, Vader was gone, and freedom returned to the galaxy. The Battle of Endor ended the galactic civil war, and in the firelight of burning wreckage, the Force found balance, at least for a time. The Death Star was gone. The Emperor was dead. But the war wasn't over. The Battle of Jakku was the final brutal end to the Galactic Empire, and the last stand of those who refused to let go of tyranny. 1 year after the Battle of Endor, the fractured remnants of the Empire regrouped in the Outer Rim, under the command of Gallius Rax, a shadowy figure operating under the Emperor's posthumous orders. His plan? To lure the New Republic to the desert planet of Jakku and destroy both sides in one cataclysmic finale. The New Republic took the bait. Starhawks, Mon Cal cruisers, and waves of fighters engaged the remnants of the Imperial fleet in a chaotic, sprawling conflict above Jakku's barren surface. Meanwhile, ground forces clashed in the dust and ruins below. Soldiers and stormtroopers locked in desperate combat among wreckage and trenches. But the Empire was crumbling. As New Republic commandos stormed key outposts, Rax triggered the planet's destruction. His goal wasn't victory, it was legacy. But he was stopped, his plan unraveled, and the Empire finally shattered. In a last act of defiance, Imperial Star Destroyers fell from the sky, plummeting into Jakku's surface in flames, burying themselves beneath the sands. Their wreckage would remain for decades, as monuments to a dead regime. The Battle of Jakku ended the Galactic Civil War. The Empire surrendered. The New Republic rose, and the galaxy tried to heal. But in the shadows of fallen giants, a new threat quietly stirred. The galaxy had changed. The Empire was gone, but its shadow lived on, in the form of the First Order. Born from the ashes of the old regime, The First Order struck with terrifying precision, unleashing a new weapon, Star Killer Base, larger than the Death Star, capable of destroying entire star systems in a single shot. The New Republic, caught unprepared, was wiped out in an instant. With the Resistance left as the galaxy's last line of defense, General Leia Organa launched a desperate strike to destroy Starkiller Base before it could fire again. But the mission wasn't just about blowing up a weapon. It was about saving a friend and a galaxy's last hope. Finn, a defected stormtrooper, returned to the First Order's heart with Han Solo and Chewbacca, hoping to rescue Rey and disable the shield. What they didn't expect was who they'd face. Kylo Ren, once Ben Solo, Leia's son, and Han's. Rey escaped, the shield was destroyed, but the cost was devastating. In a quiet confrontation on a narrow bridge, Han tried to reach his son, and Kylo ran him through. Han Solo, smuggler, hero, rebel, fell. Above, X-Wings led by Poe Dameron plunged into the trenches of Starkiller Base. Weaving through laser fire, they found the weak spot in the thermal oscillator and unleashed a chain reaction. As the planet tore itself apart, Kylo and Rey faced off in the snow. The Force awakened within her, and she drove him back, injured but alive. The Resistance fled. Starkiller Base exploded, becoming a new star in the sky. But there was no celebration. Leia felt her son's pain. Rey carried the weight of loss, and the Force stirred once more. The Battle of Starkiller Base was a tactical win, but it marked the beginning of something far greater: the return of the Jedi, the rise of darkness, and the war to come. The Resistance was broken, hunted, cornered, outnumbered, but on the barren world of Crate, they made their final stand. Once a forgotten rebel outpost, the mineral-rich planet of Crate became the site of the Resistance's last hope for survival. Beneath the white salt and red crystal soil, Leia Organa and the remaining survivors huddled in a fortress, sending a desperate signal to their allies across the galaxy. No one answered. And then, through the blinding light of the salt plains, the First Order came. Rows of all-terrain Mega-Caliber 6 walkers lined the horizon. General Hux commanded the assault, and leading the charge was Kylo Ren, now Supreme Leader, driven by rage and obsession. The Resistance's defense? Barely a dozen fighters, a few outdated ski speeders, and one spark of hope. The battle began with a doomed counterattack across the salt flats. The speeders kicked up red dust, strafing toward the walkers in a hopeless charge. Resistance fighters fell, one by one. And just when all seemed lost, Luke Skywalker appeared. But he wasn't really there. Using the Force in a way no Jedi had ever done before, Luke projected his image from across the galaxy, stalling Kylo Ren, buying time, and igniting legend. His presence rallied the Resistance. His stand allowed them to escape, and his sacrifice gave the galaxy something it had forgotten: hope. As the Resistance slipped away with Rey, Luke collapsed beneath the twin suns of Ahch-To, fading into the Force. The Battle of Crate wasn't a military victory. It was a myth reborn, and it proved that even when outnumbered, even when abandoned, light can still stand tall in the shadow of darkness. The dead speak, and in the shadows of the unknown regions, the final war for the galaxy began. The Battle of Exegol wasn't just a battle, it was a reckoning. The long-dead Emperor Palpatine had returned, building the Final Order, a fleet of planet-killing star destroyers, hidden on a dark, storm-racked world at the edge of space. As the Resistance scrambled to unite a fractured galaxy, Rey, torn between legacy and identity, confronted the truth. She was a descendant of Palpatine, the heir to his dark power, but she chose her path. She chose the light. Guided by the spirits of past Jedi, Rey ventured to Exegol, where the Sith Eternal gathered beneath lightning-filled skies, preparing to unleash their fleet. There, she faced her bloodline and her destiny. Above the chaos, the Resistance launched their final assault. Lando Calrissian led a ragtag fleet of ships from across the galaxy. Citizens, smugglers, farmers, freedom fighters. United not by rank, but by hope. Dogfights tore across the sky, capital ships exploded, ground teams raced to take out navigational beacons to stop the fleet from leaving the planet. And in the heart of the Sith Temple, Rey stood alone against the Emperor. But she wasn't alone for long. Ben Solo, redeemed, arrived, casting aside Kylo Ren, only to be struck down in defense of Rey. Near death, she rose. She heard the voices of Jedi past, Obi-Wan, Yoda, Mace Windu, Anakin. And with their strength, she stood tall.
You're not alone, Rey.
With two lightsabers, she turned Palpatine's power back on himself, obliterating the Sith once and for all. The temple collapsed, the sky broke open, and Rey fell, but was brought back by Ben Solo's final act of selfless love. The Resistance won. The fleet was destroyed, and for the first time in generations, the Sith were gone. The Battle of Exegol ended the war. It marked the fall of darkness and the rise of a new Jedi who chose the name Skywalker. The Clone Wars were ending. But for Mandalore, the real war was just beginning. The Battle of Mandalore was one of the final and most intense campaigns of the Clone Wars. It wasn't fought for control of the galaxy, it was a fight for the soul of a warrior world and a turning point for two legendary figures, Ahsoka Tano and Darth Maul. After leaving the Jedi Order, Ahsoka was pulled back into the conflict, not by obligation but by choice. Alongside Captain Rex and the 501st Legion, she traveled to Mandalore to liberate the planet from Maul's control. Once a Sith apprentice, Maul had seized power through chaos and manipulation, ruling Mandalore through fear and crime. But Ahsoka wasn't there to reclaim a throne. She was there to stop him. What followed was a brutal urban conflict. Clone troopers battled Maul's loyal Mandalorian supercommandos in the shattered capital city. Explosions tore through palace corridors. Buildings crumbled. The skies were filled with jetpack duels and blaster fire. At the center of it all, Ahsoka versus Maul. Their lightsaber duel was fast, fluid, and devastating. Choreographed chaos between two exiles of the Jedi and Sith alike. Maul taunted, Ahsoka refused to fall. And in the end, she captured him, but not before he warned of something darker. Anakin Skywalker's fall, Order 66. As Ahsoka prepared to bring Maul back to Coruscant, the unthinkable happened. Palpatine gave the order. The clones turned, friends became enemies. Mandalore was technically freed from Maul's grasp, but it was too late. The Republic collapsed. The Empire rose. And Mandalore, once proud and free, would suffer decades of occupation and civil war. The Battle of Mandalore wasn't a victory. It was a tragedy. One final spark before the galaxy went dark. Kamino, the ocean world of endless storms and cloning vats, was the birthplace of the Republic's clone army, a secret that defined the Clone Wars. But Kamino was more than just a factory. It was a fortress. And when the Separatists struck, they aimed to destroy the Republic's last hope. The Battle of Kamino was a desperate defense. Separatist forces, led by General Grievous, launched a massive assault to seize the cloning facilities and cripple the Republic's ability to fight. Waves of battle droids clashed with clone troopers, amid torrential storms and towering waterspouts. The fighting was brutal and chaotic. Amid the storm, Jedi generals like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker led their troops with fierce determination. The clones fought not just for the Republic, but for their own survival. Though the Separatists came close, the Republic held Kamino. The cloning vats remained intact. But the battle came with a price. countless clones lost, and the growing shadow of Palpatine's manipulation looming ever larger. The Battle of Kamino wasn't just a fight for a planet, it was a fight for the future of the galaxy. Deep in the Outer Rim, the shadowed world of Umbara became a brutal battleground in the Clone Wars, a place where loyalty was tested and darkness ran deep. The Battle of Umbara was a grueling campaign for control of the strategically vital planet, rich in resources and location. The Republic sent the famed 501st Legion, led by Jedi General Pong Krell, a commander whose brutal tactics and disregard for clone lives sowed fear and dissent. The clones fought through dense fog, hostile terrain, and ambushes by Umbaran forces, whose shadowy soldiers were as relentless as the jungle itself. The fight wasn't just against the enemy. It was against a leader who... The Clone Wars raged on. Christophsis, a lush, forested planet, became a crucial battleground between the Republic and the Separatists. The Battle of Christophsis saw Jedi generals Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi leading clone forces to liberate the planet from Separatist occupation. Facing them was the cunning Separatist commander, General Grievous, wielding his lightsabers and mechanical prowess. Fierce ground fighting erupted as clones pushed through dense forests and city ruins. Grievous unleashed devastating attacks, forcing the Jedi to split their forces and adapt quickly. Anakin's bold tactics and Obi-Wan's steady leadership combined to turn the tide. The battle tested alliances, strategy, and resolve, marking a significant Republic victory and further destabilizing the Separatist hold in the Outer Rim. The Battle of Christophsis was a defining moment showing the resilience of the Republic and the growing legend of the Jedi generals. Across star systems, through centuries of war, the battles of Star Wars have shaped the fate of the galaxy. From the shimmering fields of Naboo to the storm-swept plains of Crate, from the shadows of Mandalore to the fiery skies of Exegol, each conflict tells a story of hope and sacrifice, of heroes and villains, of light against darkness. These battles are more than explosions and blaster fire. They are the heartbeat of the saga, the crucible where destinies are forged and legends are born. As the Force flows through every star, every warrior, every moment, the story continues. Because in a galaxy far, far away, the fight for balance never truly ends. Thank you for joining this journey through the epic battles of Star Wars. May the Force be with you, always.